last talk with you, you announced that the CEO of IFRS had resigned and the other dude had been fired. What can you tell Iowans about that?
Well, it's a personnel issue, so I'm not going to share a lot. I have shared from the very beginning that it had no impact whatsoever on the IFRS fund, and there were no criminal charges. So this was a personnel issue, and he resigned, and Tennessee will be the acting CEO for IFRS, and we have already asked DAS to implement a national search, so we will begin the search process immediately.
But is there any point that Iowans will know more details surrounding the circumstances?
Nope. And yes, no.
Do you think that in the future, IFRS boards should have more direct oversight in the hiring and firing?
Well, they do. In fact, they do have oversight over that. So they are the ones that actually do it. So it's a little bit different than some of the other agencies that I named the director of.
Governor, on property taxes, when we started this session after you were doing your roundtables, you said there was going to be some expectation that services were going to have to be delivered differently. Now that you see what the law looks like, what is your expectation of how services are going to look differently as cities and counties say they may have to make some tough choices on what to cut?
Well, I hope you look at the state and see what we've done. I think we've led by example in our realignment efforts. We have done a lot of realignment in state government so we can reduce the cost of services, be more efficient in how we serve taxpayers, and in the long run actually save taxpayers several millions of dollars. And I think that's a great example for them to follow. And so, right now, that should be the expectation of every elected official to constantly reevaluate how they're delivering services, look for ways that they can do it better, and in the long run, really being mindful of those tax dollars and how they're being spent. And so they'll have to look at how they operate just like we do. They now will budget like we do at the state level, where our AC tells us the revenue that we can spend. We can only spend 99% of it, and then we build our budget from that, and we prioritize based on where we feel those dollars should be spent. And that's exactly the same process that they'll have to undertake. Look for opportunities where they can share services, which really several of them are already doing. So look for that. Look forward, just reevaluate all of your operations. Look for opportunity to cut where you can and to start to provide some of those savings. But remember, they still get growth, and they're starting from an elevated position. Over the last 2 years, the taxpayers, property owners, have seen 10% increase in the property tax bill. So they're starting from an elevated position. We allow them growth each year, so we're not, holding it steady. And in addition to that, we have some flexible levies that were capped. So there's some flexibility within the bill that was signed into law, and so they'll just start having to evaluate how we provide those services.
Governor, the session ended without a bill on eminent domain or carbon pipelines heading to your desk. How are you feeling about that? And do you think the pipeline is going to start? Are they going to start construction?
Well, we'll just have to see. They have to go through the process just like they have been all along. So I don't drive what the legislature takes up or doesn't take up. What I do is I present my priorities every legislative year, and then I do everything I can to drive them across the finish line and work with both chambers to get there. So, that's not a question for me really to answer why it didn't go or didn't go through both chambers and land up on my desk. That's really a question for the legislators.
Early federal discussions on maybe suspending the federal gas tax. Is that something to think about on a state level or too soon?
Well, again, we have to go through the legislature, so I don't have the authority to do that through an EO because it's constitutionally protected. I actually talked to the leader this morning to let them know that wasn't something I could do, that we have to go through the legislative process. So we'll just have to see. Hopefully we can get the war wrapped up in Iran, we can get the Strait of Hormuz opened, and we can start to get the oil flowing. I think once that happens, you're going to see them fall really fast. I think we saw that a couple different times when it looked like there was going to be some resolution to the Strait of Hormuz. So, that's ultimately, I think the president is committed to getting something done. I'm sure it was a discussion. I assume it was when he met with President Xi with the China meeting. So, he's looking at it. I think that's fine. You should look at all options, but really I think the focus is getting that settled, get the strait opened, and really starting to move oil as we continue to push for E15 year-round, because that is another option for us to bring down gas prices. With E15 year-round, if you look at the pumps, you could save anywhere from 20 to 50% sometimes on a gallon of gas. So we're going to continue to advocate for E15 year round. We've seen the results here in Iowa and with all the states that I partnered with. I think we've demonstrated that it does make a difference. It helps our farmers, it helps our consumers, it helps our environment. It's the right thing to do. It brings some market predictability to bear as well. So we should be looking at all of those things.
Speaking of President Trump's meeting with President Xi, I guess your reaction to the outcomes from that and some of the news that we're hearing today about commitments from China to purchase additional agricultural exports and what that's going to mean for Iowa farmers who are facing financial strain.
Yeah, I think it's great. We don't have a lot of details, but it sounds potentially $17 billion in egg purchases yearly, so that's good. Sounds like they're opening up access to U.S. beef and poultry as well, and then significant purchase for U.S. soybeans annually as well. So 25 metric ton, I think, a million metric ton is what they're projected to purchase. So, all of that would be really beneficial to our ag economy here in Iowa. But it's also really important because what we've seen with China over and over is ag seems to be their negotiating tool. So that's where they go to, the push and the pull, because they know that that's where they can be effective. And that's why I have been to India twice in the last year, because we need to look for not only a democratic country, but new markets where we would not be so reliant on a country that uses ag as a negotiating tool as they're trying to get things that are important to them as well. So it's really important that we're doing all of that. It's great. It will help, but we also need to really stay focused on building out the existing markets and looking for new opportunities as well.
Can you go back to property taxes for a sec? The shared services side of this, you went through a bunch of stuff with their several waves of realignment in that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that your department heads or anything can do for the locals to get them kind of thinking about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I did a lot of that was around tables, really. And that's Doge made some recommendations, also areas where they could realign. We've done it with the behavioral health districts. I think that's kind of a model that some of the local governments could really follow with some of the public health and some of the services from that perspective. So I think that's a great model to follow. It was controversial, but I also recommended that we not have the treasurer, auditor, and recorder be elected positions. I think that's probably something we'll have to keep maybe talking about. It's a change, it's a big change, and so there was some reluctance to that. But we just have to look at how we deliver services, and we're a small state with a lot of government, and that costs the taxpayers, a lot of money, and so. It's in their benefit and ours, I believe, to look for areas where we can collaborate and really partner and really reduce the size and scope of government. And with AI, and just innovation that we're able to look at, there's just so many ways in which we can do that. Driver's license is another one. We've got a new, what do you want to call it? What is
Licensing system.
New system. Oh, geez, it's the tough words. System. It's called a system. The DOT system. They've been working on that, and so I got a sneak preview of what that looks like. And just again, you're going to be able to do more and more things online, as we should be able to. So people are, not going to drive to get these services done. So we need to think differently. How can we do that differently? And what other services can we provide? So there's a lot of different things they can think about.
Regarding the property taxes, what would you say to school districts that have borrowed against that future sales tax revenue and now may be in danger of defaulting on some of those
They're
bonds?
not, and we've got plenty of details and information that we provided for the school districts and the individuals that were giving them information. So we'd be happy to give that to you.
Okay.
When are you going to? Don't you have 10 million? I was sort of sleepwalking at the end, but isn't there $10 million in this bill for the shared?
No, it didn't make it in the bill, so it didn't make it in. But we can continue to work with them, and they know it was just to try to incentivize them to think about ways of collaborating. It was a one-time expense. A one-time grant that they could utilize. But we did it without any grants here at the state level, so you just have to be committed to looking for opportunities to really change the way you deliver services. That was our idea to kind of help with that. I wasn't, so you don't get everything that you want. I wasn't able to get that through both chambers as we were kind of finalizing the negotiations. So, yeah. Thank you.